Okay, it is 30 minutes gone past 7 o'clock in Lagos, Nigeria world. Welcome to Freshly Pressed, where we dissect the big news that makes its way into the dailies and onto our lines as it concerns Nigeria. I'm Shokla Martins. This is Smooth Breakfast from 6 a.m. till 10 every single weekday. And joining me for the next half hour to get their voices out over the airwaves and to just let you know a little bit more in depth into what's going on in the country, I have got the two C's of Freshly Pressed, Mr. C and Chetawaze. Good morning and good morning.
Not exactly a good morning, so I can't return the greeting.
Yes, yes, it's not that, but I'm trying.
Good
Morning,
morning.
Mr. C.
Good morning, Lagos.
Wow. Okay. Well, there you have it, people. And we've got you too. So make sure you send your WhatsApp messages in to 0809 444 We're up on Twitter at Smooth981FM. Do make sure you tag us and use the hashtag freshlypressed981. And we're also streaming live up on youtube.com/Smooth981FM Lagos. You can find us on our channel Smooth981 on the YouTube app. So you can also leave a comment up on the live stream and get your thoughts in. Today, it's looking at the news, it's been a bit of a dumpster fire. I don't even know how else to put it. But we're going to go straight into what's happening. Now, we're going to be starting off with the events of yesterday of Ondo and the wide reaching effects of them. From the Premium Times, how gunmen attacked Ondo Church. This, according to police. Now, the police in Ondo State, giving us a little insight into the attack on St. Francis Catholic Church in Owo in Ondo State on Sunday, where it's believed that over 70 people were killed and injured. Now, witnesses also reported that the gunmen threw explosives into the church and started shooting as worshippers scampered for safety. Although the police haven't really come out to talk about the mortalities and the injuries that have occurred from this. Now, Cheta, number of people have linked the first of all, may their souls rest in peace. That needs to be said. Firstly, foremost, may their souls rest in peace. Their families find strength in times of trouble. Um, Going into what was shared into too much detail, we'll leave that to you, Cheta. But a number of people have rise in insecurity that we've been seeing recently with such alarming effects to it being election season. So, my question to you would be, is this going to be over in a matter of months and then we can breathe easy until the next wave? Or are we looking at the juggernaut effect of what is a larger malaise?
It's a larger Malays, it's not. We've always had insecurity issues when we come to electioneering period. It's our way, but this time around is different. The sheer number of arms in circulation is stunning, and when you couple that with the rather large unemployment rate, bear in mind that we've not had official unemployment data for 2 years now, but yes, why guys?
No, no, I'm
Yeah,
just
we've not had official unemployment data for 2 years now. The last time we had official unemployment data, it was 33%. Youth unemployment was 42%. Um, there's every indication that it has gotten worse. Think of the story that we did last week, with regards the number of people who are basically living, the number of people there's the story that was covered 2 weeks ago about the number of people who are withdrawing from their pension savings accounts and all of that. Um, I think for me, the key thing with regards to the Owa story from yesterday is, what is the value of a Nigerian life? It's a question we have to ask. It's a painful question, but it's a very necessary question. Think of all the massacres that happened under these governments. Agamu, Ukpabinimbo, Guma, Shiroro, Kajuru, Karamai. This is just to name a few. In all of these that I have mentioned, and much more, the attacks were in distinctly rural locations. Yesterday's was in a town of about 200,000 people, and it happened right in the center of town. Yet, up until this morning, we don't have any suspects. I mean, in pretty much every investigative or procedural documentary I've ever seen, not drama, documentary, because at least those ones tend to be fact based, they repeat over and over again that the first 48 hours are critical in finding the people who did it. We've already wasted almost 24 of that 48. And as usual, we're letting this slip away. I don't have much hope that anything will come out of it. And it will be yet another thing that would be chipping away at the credibility of the Nigerian state and thus its integrity.
But Cheta, if you listen to anyone who comes out and talks about this, be it governor, be it security forces, it seems like we do know who this is because they have a new name, unknown gunmen. That's the new name of people that are committing these attacks now, these atrocities. What are we supposed to do with that?
So, who is unknown gunmen?
I would love to know.
As I was
Seems to
saying,
be the new kid on the block.
as I was saying. Now, consider the fact that these governments, and um, some people will accuse me of bashing this government. Yes, I am. They've been on the seat for 7 years, and yes, were treated to a disgusting video of them backslapping and clapping each other at a dinner, political dinner, in the night, in the evening after this happened, after issuing the worthless statements about how grief stricken they were. They were not grief stricken. What this tells me is, see, yes, I'm Catholic. Yesterday was Pentecost. It could have been me that could have been a victim. It could be any of you because this is in the middle of an urban area. These guys walked in, killed people, and walked out. Now, this government forced all of us to register for NIN because, according to them, they said they wanted us to be able to, what they call that, they want to be able to track terrorists. Since the whole NIN thing happened, do you know how many terrorist attacks have happened in the country? It's a ridiculous amount. How many have they caught by tracking their phone? The terrorists that kidnap people, that killed people first and then kidnap people from the Kaduna Abuja highway, have been making phone calls. Have they tracked them down? They've been releasing videos. Have they tracked them down? This kind of uselessness shows us how useless we are. It makes people log out of the country.
Okay, so I want to jump in on this and add a different perspective. So on the 5th of June 2022, there was this massacre in Owo, which and that was
That's what I was talking about.
now a year ago, same date, a different community in Oyo State, there was a similar massacre. Now the Owo incident, believe it or not, 3 minutes from that church is a military camp. There's no record, no narrative of anything the soldiers did. And those guys must have operated for at least 30 minutes to an hour. There's nothing to show what the soldiers from that camp did or attempted to do.
Bros, people went into the Nigerian Defense Academy and kidnapped. The army paid ransom. So what are you talking about?
Cheta, I hear you, but it's for the listeners to understand the gravity of the situation facing them.
The one that made the gravity is already, anybody who is listening already knows the gravity that this thing. See, this thing is beyond gravity now.
At this point, I'm going to take it to your messages. So send them in on whichever platform it is you want to share on Twitter, YouTube, WhatsApp. Let's do this. So Joseph from Silver Estate says the overwhelming sad news this weekend only tells us the value of life in Nigeria is next to nothing. Another citizen killed for alleged blasphemy in Abuja, and a massacre in the Ondo church. Unfortunately, all we're getting from the presidency, leaders, and governments is the usual condemnation, yet no actions to curb future attacks. Ike Peter, thank you for sending your message in. Idima Puza from Srila is saying they've succeeded in turning Nigeria into a killing field. The evil ones are not even afraid of killing worshippers inside a church. No lives matter again in Nigeria. As Tony from Ikeja says, the shooting of Catholic worshippers brings back to mind the claim that of all religions, let's see. Okay, let's move on now. Victor Sean says nothing like unknown gunmen in Nigeria's security challenges. These killers are not unknown to the Nigerian government. The government has also succeeded in conning the media to label these terrorists as bandits or unknown gunmen. There is a bigger agenda, and your messages do keep on coming in. Dami from Ikorodu, I'll read this one before we go back to the stories. Dami from Ikorodu saying condolences to everyone affected in yesterday's tragedy, while to all the families that lost loved ones. Yesterday was a Black Sunday, but for the generality of Nigerians, it was simply another day, another shooting. Okay, getting back into the stories, we're going to take this one now. Hold on one second. From this day newspaper again, Muslim extremists set man ablaze for alleged blasphemy in Abuja, which some of you have already referenced in your messages. Now, this comes barely 3 weeks after we saw the lynching of Deborah Samuel in Sokoto, where she was killed, set ablaze by a mob over a comment that she had made in a chat. We've had this latest incident, which happened near the Tipper Garage section of the Fruit Market, the federal housing estate in Lugbe, for another a man was set ablaze for allegedly blaspheming the Prophet Muhammad. Now, apparently, angry Muslim youths said to be numbering more than 200 were said to have killed the victim, who was identified as Ahmad Usman, who was said to be a member of the local vigilance group. They clubbed him to death and poured petrol over his body before setting him on fire. Um, Cheta, we've had the lynching of Deborah Samuel, the death of David Imo in Lekki at the hands of the Okada riders. We had last Sunday's attack in Lokogoma in Abuja, and now this. And by the way, all of these are just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the violence that we've been seeing, the increased violence. And I'm not talking about unknown gunmen. I'm
Mob
not talking
justice.
about any of this. I'm talking about people, the
Yeah,
citizens,
mob
turning
justice.
into a mob.
So
Yes.
yeah, um, this weekend's killing of Ahmad Usman, who, for the record, happened to be a Muslim, um, is at once tragic as it is instructive. Um, and I think that beyond just condemnation, we need to try to understand the propensity of Nigerians to resort to mob violence. We need to understand the roots of it. And I think it boils down to two things: economics and education. Education first. Well, three things actually: economics, education, and then a loss of trust in the rule of law. Loss of trust in the rule of law, as we saw, as we talked about or touched on in the last story, is the simple fact that because nobody trusts the system to deliver justice, there's a tendency to take justice into their own hands. Education, in the fact that because people don't understand when these things happen routinely, which is what it is becoming, capital will fly, and this leads us to economics. For the records, my organization, SBI Intelligence, published a study a week ago that showed that mob violence is actually a lot more in southern Nigeria than it is in northern Nigeria. Two and a half, by an order of two and a half. So between January of 2019 and May 18th this year, we've had 197 separate incidents of mob violence in the south as opposed to 82 in the north. Yeah, but the thing is that what you tend to have is that in the north, the violence is nihilist in nature, like what we saw this weekend, like what we saw unfortunately with Samuel Yakubu. While in the south, it tends to be economic in nature, so you are more likely to get killed, to get lynched in the south for over an argument about money, while in the north, typically it should be religion. Now, if we accept that these are the issues, we need to start asking, why is it that our people are so quick to resort to jungle justice? And it boils down to what we talked about earlier, that lack of faith in the justice system. So let's zero in on the north now. This quick resort to violence for blasphemy. In the world right now, sorry, in the world right now, there are 79 countries that have blasphemy laws on their statutes. Of all the 79, only 7 have the death penalty for blasphemy. Nigeria is one of them. The other 6 are Mauritania, Somalia, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. But in doing my research, I found that it is only in 5 of these 7 that routinely you get stories of mobs dispensing justice, their version of justice for blasphemy. There's the two in which mobs do not dispense justice for blasphemy: Saudi Arabia and Iran. What is the underlying thing? Iran is the poorer of the two on a per capita basis. But so if you rank all these countries on a per capita basis, Saudi Arabia is the richest, followed by Iran, then Nigeria. And Iran is 10 times richer than
A
Nigeria,
distant third.
a distant third. So basically, what this tells me is that the economics matters, just like in the south of Nigeria. Is the economics. When you have, if you notice, with the exception of the unfortunate incident with Daniel Imo, most of the lynchings that happen in southern Nigeria happen in the ghetto, in poor areas. And look at the arguments can be made that Lekki Phase One is a ghetto now. It's just, I mean, Aberrant is just down the road.
You were
Do we
saying,
want to
Cheta?
start this?
We do not have
Let's
the
not
time for
sidetrack
that.
ourselves. Bottom line is we need to start seriously looking at lifting our people out of poverty, because as long as we are an overwhelmingly poor population, which we are. Poverty bellow us war. If as long as we're overwhelmingly poor, we are going to be seeing more and more of this.
Now, part of lifting out of poverty, land tends to be get brought into the conversation. But then let's look at this article as we now come back to Lagos. 3 die as Lagos Ministry Police and hoodlums demolished 200 buildings, coming in from the Punch newspaper. And this goes into it that hundreds of landlords and residents were rendered homeless after officials of the Lagos State Ministry of Fiscal Planning, the Urban Development, along with security agents and hoodlums, apparently demolished about 200 buildings at the Okera community in Igbogbo local council development area of the state. And this took place over 10 hours, Mr. C. And okay, so the news that came out, the numbers that came out from this were that 3 landlords reportedly died from shock, and that a minimum of 8 others were traumatized by the incident, had to be hospitalized for this. Now, Mr. C, the landlords and the residents say that there was no demolition order, that rather the government officials were acting solely on the orders of the state governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Is it possible that they can carry out a demolition of this size and scope without an order? I mean, and what else do you get from this story?
Okay, thank you, Shopper. So, to answer your last question, they shouldn't be in a position to carry out a demolition without a demolition notice previously served and a demolition order. And I say they shouldn't because that remains the ideal. The reality in Lagos for a while has been there have been some shady demolitions that have gone on. Now, reading through this story, the first thing that is really upsetting is the Lagos State Ministry for Urban Planning, policemen and hoodlums working together. How? If you have policemen working with the ministry officials, what precisely do you need hoodlums for if it's a legal demolition? The mere fact
Thug life, baby.
okay,
Back to you, Mr. C.
yes, continue back to the analysis. So, what are the hoodlums there for if it's legal? And then when you read the stories further, the hoodlums prevented the owners of those properties or the occupants of those properties from removing any personal effects and demanded for bribes of at least 20,000. Now, this is just the latest incident in a trend of demolitions. Of course, the Lagos State government will come out later and suggest that, oh, they had been given a notice, they had refused to comply with the notice, and all of that. Now, it begs the question, when you seek to demolish a site, you're seeking to demolish it for a number of reasons. One, it's been acquired for public use under the Land Use Act, or in contravention of the existing laws regarding land and estate. And then at that point, the people affected have the right and the opportunity to present their own side of the case, their own version of events. There's nothing to suggest from this story that that's happened. Our thoughts go out to the families of the 3 landlords who died. There's 7 who were in the hospital. And it's shocking to find out that this dispute is because of a previous land transaction, apparently. So it appears the traditional ruler of that area sold community land to a company
Okay.
without the knowledge or concurrence of the family members. Now, when they found out, they were understandably very upset. Now, the law in Nigeria concerning traditional land is the head of the family, the traditional ruler, can sell a loan, but if he does it without the concurrence of the other family members, they can ratify it. They can agree to ratify it and it's not void. But if they sell without the head of the family or the traditional ruler, it is void ab initio. That sale never happened. Now, the company that supposedly received the land that was sold apparently took more land than was given. So the other family members took the company to court. The matter is still in court, it's still sub judice, and then this demolition happens. And Lagos State government, how do you go for a demolition and you're unable to show or tender any documents? Because it is to be expected that you will be asked to provide documentation.
This in a country where rule of law is still supposed to
Yes. Take your
also.
mind back to early this year, Magodo, when they showed up trying to, and then they were challenged to produce documents, and they were bringing out newspaper ad cutouts.
People, what say you about this and so much more? We've got more stories, but so many of your messages have been coming in. I need to read them from the different platforms. So going over to youtube.com/smooth981 FM Lagos. Olotu Ajishafe says the daily rate of kidnapping and murdering of innocent lives in the country is appalling, and the government seems to be less concerned. Whilst Raphael Edwards says Nigeria has been thrown to the dogs, and only a dogged and dedicated leader can make it happen. I'm guessing you mean recovery. Frank says because it was a church, there is a religious tinge to this, but no one wants to speak of that until the investigations bring this to the forefront. And going over to your messages on WhatsApp, Ni Loma says, "How can kidnappers may the first of all says may the souls of the victims rest in peace? How can kidnappers, bandits, and terrorists be so predictable with their mode of operation and strategy, and yet our law enforcement agencies do not know how to handle them? If only President Buhari has handled the issues of Nigeria the way he handled the different issues, such as the way he handled the APC issue, then ASU would not be on strike, our refineries would be working, and insecurity would have been a thing of the past. Nigerians have been subdued and intimidated into submission by the government in power." And Frank says, thank you, Cheta. Well done, Smooth Breakfast Group. Thank you for that. Saying that the information that you dish out is world class. And precedence, Okwelua from Ikoyi says, is the key word here. No single person has been prosecuted and made to pay for all these killings. In over 7 years of this government, has there been any successful prosecution and punishment meted out for terrorism and jungle justice? The silence of the present government is very loud. And BDA from Lekki says, why are we here as a country? Unemployment, illiteracy, a declining economy, arms proliferation, a drug scourge, weak justice system, and a non-existent Ministry of Interior. I largely agree with Cheta's analysis. All right, getting back into the news for today. This one in from the Punch newspaper. National carrier gets license today, local airlines fault process. Apparently Nigeria Air is now really, we're starting to see solid evidence that it might actually run. An air transport license is being issued to Nigeria Air, or will be issued today. And this is 4 years. So the branding and livery of the new airline unveiled by the federal government during the Farnborough Air Show in London. Mr. C, I'd love for you to weigh in on this.
Okay, thank you, Shokbat. So, 4 years ago at an air show in England, the Minister for Aviation, Hadi Sirika, had announced that a new national carrier was on the way. 4 years later,
And we waited,
yes,
and waited, and waited, counted 4 times.
yes, and 4 years later, they're about to present the 8-year air transport license to the airline, which will allow it to operate scheduled and unscheduled operations. However, there is still the all-important air operator certificate that is yet to be issued. Now, on paper, it's a very interesting concept because all over the world, the concept of a national carrier is outdated. All over the world. Now, what the Minister of Aviation is seeking to present to Nigeria is that this is a national carrier where the federal government owns 5%, Nigerians own 46%, and then foreign investors own 49%. I don't know by what definition or understanding that adds up to national carrier. Now, what is apparent is that national resources are being used to promote a private airline because the Air Operators Association of Nigeria is saying that the process surrounding this national carrier is shrouded in secrecy. It's not transparent. But okay, for the 46% of shares to be held by Nigerians, is there a prospectus out? Is there any document outlining the business prospects of this new airline? How you're pricing the shares? What is the required amount of money to be invested? And who are these foreign investors that are going to be brought in?
For me, it's quite interesting the timing of it all because considering the fact we've seen what the airline industry went through over the past few years, over the past couple of years, and then we're looking at what are even just the airline companies that we have within the Nigerian space and the tooth and nail fights they are in to just stay alive and stay running. Okay, well, we'll keep looking at this. Actually, I want to take this, you to take this story from me from this day newspaper, so that we can get a couple more stories in before we end the show. Federal government shelves $950 million Eurobond sale over unfavorable pricing. Can you take us through that, please?
I'll just say that Vladimir Putin did us a favor. If not, if he hadn't invaded Ukraine, they would have gone ahead to take this money. For me, what's jumped to me in the story is the fact that she faulted the IMF, talking about our debt service to revenue ratio and all of that. At the risk of sounding rough, I would say that the honorable Miss Ahmed is talking nonsense. The IMF based what they said on very solid data. We've borrowed money up to our ears and we're almost drowning in debt. If she wanted to take $950 million more, basically, what is our listen? It, last Tuesday, we sat here and we calculated the this our debt, what we have already spent on petrol subsidy alone this year is already 4 trillion naira. Our entire revenue last year was 5.5 trillion. I saying how you've not even talked of salaries or any other thing, just petrol subsidy, and they borrowed money earlier in the year for specifically for petrol subsidy. Come on, please, let's get real.
And this day, court nullifies NBC code, gives broadcast industry hope. Mr. C, your thoughts on this?
So very quickly, this is a victory against the culture of impunity. In 2017,
If they obey
stakeholders,
the court order,
they will have to.
Oh, well,
what
Mr.
country have
C,
they been
I'm
in?
not sure. Well, we've seen.
No, so
Mhm.
so here's the thing, right? You're in the run-up to an election. There's a valid court judgment that has been delivered. You have a certified true copy of the ruling, right?
I'm
It-
sorry, I keep
Chester, are you
interrupting.
looking for
Wait,
a
wait,
list of
wait.
court orders that have been
I'm sorry, I
forged?
keep interrupting. We're in a run up to an election.
Yes.
There was a massacre yesterday, and in the evening of the same yesterday, there was a massacre. They were all eating jollof rice
That was
and shining teeth like
th-
solar panels.
that was unwise of them. But
You think they will be wise about this one?
they,
Nah, happy referring
Mr.
aka.
C, what exactly are you trying to say? Tell us.
okay, so the proposed amendment sought to force content holders to give away their content at prices they had no control over, and then sought to determine how advertising agencies will be regulated, forgetting that there's an Advertising Practitioners Act of Nigeria. Now, in a nutshell, the summary of the judgment was that anyone who invests money in obtaining rights to content has a legal right to reap out that investment and cannot be lawfully forced to give away that content.
That does make common sense. But
No. But again, the people in office continue to disappoint us. No, continue to disappoint themselves. Now you have four major sites: Netflix, Amazon, Iroko TV, and African Magic, who are pumping money into generating content. They're paying studios daily to generate content. Then you now come and say, no matter how popular the content is, they can be forced to give it to a subclass at prices they cannot determine. How does that make any sense?
It does in line Mohammed's
well,
economics.
Nigeria. I think that's just the answer. Very quickly, let's take this comment from Maureen, who says, "Good analysis all around. We need to get our people out of poverty. We need to educate and really educate our people, including the hoodlums. Insurgents receive alerts, and yet we can't find any killers or miscreants. Unfortunately, there is no silver bullet to fix our issues. When do we impeach? What is the trigger for justice? And are we talking about Nigeria Air to fly where? We have never had it so bad." And that message does go on, Maureen, but hopefully I got the gist of it. Thank you so much for sending your messages in. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. Thank you for joining us on as we are on air. And thank you to Mr. C and Cheta for joining us. Now, you can find both of them online across the social media platforms at the same name. Mr. C is Amoncio C with a triple E. And Cheta, of course, you know him as at Chickster. Thank you, gentlemen. And it's been a it's been a troubling weekend. It's been a troubling few months so far. People, you know what to do. Vote. Vote, vote, vote. Tata, can you take a break?